on his Cosmic Oracle show.
Okay. So I'm just refreshing to wait to see when it comes on.
Okay.
It doesn't appear to be there yet.
I have a lot
Yes,
more
it is.
folks.
We are there.
All right. That's so
Found
good.
it. I have found you.
Oh, and I don't get to see it for some reason on
Yes,
my
it is. We are there. There we go.
Yeah.
Let me just
Oh,
check.
cool. Okay, so we're ready to go on to live on Revolution Radio. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Here we go. I can't hear that. Just let me fix this part. There we go. And whoops.
Eastern time. Bring your mind.
There we go.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one shot, just one shot, and come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our land? Will they never take freedom? Death is inevitable. I know that. One thing is certain, as free men, it is our right to live uncommon peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion. And the chains are tighter, our ability to put those chains increase incrementally, steadily, as they move. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise the flavor. Like a cacophony of thunder and lightning, and tell the master, no more. This is Nighthawk, and I say, myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because freedom is the Barbara Jean Lindsey is an internationally acclaimed psychic, spiritual healer, author, and founder of the online mystery school at Esoteric University. As the Cosmic Oracle, she is a conduit to the powers that be to answer your questions about your future self, past lives, current career, love. She shines light into the darkness to illuminate what was, what may be, and beyond. The readings and advice given by Barbara Jean Lindsey are for entertainment purposes only. Should not take the place of any medical, legal, or financial advice given to you by a qualified professional and are not a substitute for medical, legal, or financial advice. If you need a doctor, call a doctor. If you need to be expanded, call the Cosmic.
Can we talk? Can they hear us?
Mhm.
We can talk? Okay, so we're not live yet.
We are live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Cosmic Oracle Show. We are coming to you live today from Sierra Madre, California. And our beautiful guest will be here shortly. And it's our beautiful Karen SWAIN from Sydney, Australia. Yay! It's thank everyone, especially Karen, for coming on to the show today. And thank you for all of your support in keeping Revolution Radio on the air. And the way we do that is we do that through donations given by you to the station because we're an all volunteer station. And what that means is no one gets paid for this. We do it because it gives us freedom to have whomever we desire on our shows, and we have the freedom to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And that's why I love being here on Revolution Radio. It is the Cosmic Oracle 6th year doing this once a week, and so I'm just really honored and grateful, thankful to be here. And all you have to do to keep us on the air is go to freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips.com and give whatever you can, $5, $10. We have a Patreon account. It's like less than giving money for a movie theater. And our movie theaters just opened up here back in LA for the first time. And so I never thought I'd be so excited about that, but I really So welcome back, everyone, for listening to my show for all these years, and for all your love and support. You can go to my website, Barbara Jean Lindsey. That's BARBARAJEANLINDSEY.com, and see what's going on. And I am going to be speaking coming up. The next one is at the Sasquatch Conference, the Spiritual Psychic Sasquatch Conference in Washington. That'll be the end of May. And then I will be speaking virtually at Contact in the Desert this year as well. So things are still happening, just in a different way. It's amazing what we humans can do with working and diversity and all working together. So without further ado, let's invite my dear friend on. She looks so beautiful in all of your white, and I just love her so much. I know you're going to love her too. This is our Karen SWAIN. She is there's so many things, you know, it's hard to choose. You do so much, but I do want them to know a little bit. You were given a message. We're going to be talking about that, of how you started in all of this sacred, like, big cauldron that you keep of all these different hats that you wear to keep consciousness moving and people connecting and going and changing. And so she is the teacher of deliberate creation, and she is a creator at Awakened by Death. This is her book. We're going to talk about that today. Stories of Transformation. She is the ATP Media Awakening Consciousness with Karen SWAIN. She is co-founder, I want to talk about this, the Sydney Peace Day Festival. And she's the founder of Accentuate, the Positive Media, Enlightened Conversations. And I seem to have been there and did a few of those with her.
I know. Reading the intros.
You can you can reach Karen SWAIN at karenswain.com, and I'm sure she has other ways to reach her, because I know you're going to want to. But we'll talk about her Awakened by Death, Stories of Transformation, and she talks her whole thing about her near-death experience, and her other book, Return to Love. So I mean, I think you said this to me when I was on your show, and I'm going to quote Karen SWAIN. I think you've done it all.
There's a lot going on, honey.
So
Reach our age.
Welcome to the show, my dear friend.
Beautiful to be with you, cosmic sister. Cosmic sister. Look, I know there's a lot going on. When you reach our age, you sort of come up with a lot of ideas, and you tend to implement, you know, some of them. There's so many more ideas that I want to implement before I leave this earth. But yeah, I've implemented a few ideas of how to expand consciousness and get us moving along. You know, I had Susie Hansen on my show. Have you ever had her on your show? Yeah. And she said something that I just keep thinking about. She said that, you know, the ETs look at human consciousness and how it's been evolving, and she said it should be running like a flowing river. And she said, you know, the stagnant water that gets stuck at the side of the river and it stagnates and it goes putrid. She said that's been human consciousness. We've been stagnant water. So we need to sort of get in the middle of the river and flow. And yeah, we need to flow. We need to
dance it, right? Let's dance it up. Let's celebrate it, right?
Exactly.
And we have such a thing going with consciousness, right? How many years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when you said consciousness, I remember someone said consciousness to me. I had to look it up in the dictionary.
Really?
I didn't know exactly what it was. I like the idea of it. So how did you first start getting into this consciousness movement?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I started asking questions very young, you know, like, why am I here? What are we doing here? What are we supposed to be doing here? And just all those questions. And I used to harass and hound my parents with questions. And, you know, as I said, the stagnant water, most humans are not thinking like that. They're thinking about how to pay the bills, how to be liked, you know, how to have a good time, how to find some sort of comfort. And then there are those curious minds that are like, but why? But why? But why? And I was one of those kids just asking a million questions. How can a baby be born in sin? That doesn't make sense. You know, like all this, we weren't even religious, and religious stuff wasn't discussed in my household. But when I heard concepts like, you know, you're going to go to hell if you're not baptized and stuff like that sort of bandied around, and I'm like, how can that be? That doesn't make any sense. And I'd go home and ask my parents, and they'd go, I don't know, Karen. I don't think about these things. That's not something I think about. So mum dies when I'm a teenager, and I'm asking bigger questions like, why do people get sick? Like, why does that happen? And where do you go when you die? And if you go somewhere, there must be a place that we're here before we get here. And if we're at some place before we get here and we have these lives, I mean, where is that place and what does that look like? You know, just questions. Yeah. So that's how it started, seeking answers to those questions.
And then you've had such amazing guests on your program. This is a little bit later, but when you started that, is that a doorway that just opened, like, if I don't know, and I've learned as much as I know about death, these people got to know because they've been there and back.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, I didn't start the show with that desire to fulfill, you know, the questions. It was more about, I was teaching deliberate creation at the time, and a bit like Rhonda Byrne, who brought out The Secret, I just looked out into life and I'm like, why do people not know about this? I mean, how is it possible that people don't understand the game of life and how to play it? Have you ever read Florence Scovel Shinn's books, The Game of Life and How to Play It? You know, she was a metaphysician and an artist back in the beginning of the last century when she was putting out her teachings. And I love that saying, the game of life and how to play it. How come why are we not taught how this works? Like, why? So the going on radio was about, I used to love that show, Frasier, you know, Frasier.
Yeah.
And he's on radio and he's spruiking all this terrible information to people. I mean, it's a comedy show. It's not supposed to be about, well, do you realize it's 11:11 here at the equinox right now? Woo!
Yay! Pause for that.
And I thought, I wish there would be someone on radio that's actually talking about something that could enlighten humanity instead of gossip and innuendo and crap that you hear on radio. And so I was putting it to a friend of mine who's a psychic, and I said, I've been thinking about radio and going on radio to teach deliberate creation. She said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. And so she was instrumental in, like, you know, moving forward with that, because it's quite difficult to get on radio. We were just on community radio. And I did it with her for about 6 months, and then her husband retired and she went off sailing around the place and left me to it. I moved to a different radio station where we couldn't do what we're doing now. We couldn't do like live and have people talk to us because there's a 7-second delay on radio, which means that people, if they're swearing or saying things that can get you, you know, license revoked, they can kick you. They've got 7 seconds to kick you off. But on this station, we didn't have a 7-second delay. So I started interviewing or having conversations with people instead of having callers ring up and ask questions. And that's how it started. And that was 12 years ago. You've been doing it for 6. I've been doing it for 12. It's called tenacity, darling, tenacity.
Wow. And when you started, you don't know where you're going with it either. You have no idea. You have an idea, and then it kind of starts to have its own its own life to it, right? Of where it's going and evolving to.
Absolutely. You know, people are our best resources, aren't they? I mean, why I met Patch Adams. Have you ever met Dr. Patch Adams, that movie that was made about him with Robin Williams? He's just one of the most fascinating men. But he said, you know, I don't believe in God. I believe in people. People are my God. And I really know what he means by that. When he was young and he was a medical student, he used to just randomly ring up people in the phone book just to talk to them. And he'd like hang out out of tree. He'd hang upside down out of trees so that people would say, what are you doing? So that he would just start conversations with people. And I really understand it because people are fascinating. Like people's stories. You look at all these random people walking in the street. Have you ever stopped and asked them who they are and what their story is? I mean, if you did, you'd find out that people are amazing. And that's what keeps me going. When you have conversations with people, as I'm sure you know, you find out some of the most amazing stories and their galactic lineage and their contact with their guides, and like, wow, like your story is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. people are fascinating. So that keeps me going. I just love hearing people's stories. Yeah.
Well, and with the concept of death itself, because that's really a no-no, right? Where you die and you're done and that's the end of it, right? And so at least that's the way we were taught, right? When I was young, and you don't talk about it. It's like the big elephant in the middle of the room, death. Like
Absolutely.
like the Darth Vader death, and I, with your work and all of your amazing interviews that you do, and you go deep within this realm, that it's taking it out of that scary, fearful place and really.
Well, you mentioned when you were doing the intro that I was given a message, and I was when I was about, I don't know, about 20 years ago, I was thinking, what do I do to help this world? I mean, what can I address in this world that is the thing that creates the most suffering? So I'm a teacher of deliberate creation, which is about getting back to joy, because your joy is where it's at, right? And when you raise your vibe and you're a happier, more joyful person, you're more connected to your source, you're more connected to your power of manifestation, and you're just loving your life more. So I'm thinking, okay, so what stops people from being joyful? What's the thing that people worry about the most, or depresses or saddens people the most? And I got this death thing, like we get so, fear of death, fear of survival. But it's so infiltrated through our whole, even money worries is this, will I survive? Will I survive? This fear of surviving, this fear of death. It's just huge in our society. And there is no death. Like the ETs know that. So many people who are up on ships are hanging out with souls who are just points of light. They're not even incarnated into some sort of body, and they're just hanging out, having chats with souls. And so the ETs understand that there is no death. There is no death. So when I'm contemplating this question, what will I write about? What will I, think about? What will I do? My guides go, oh, stop stressing over it and just write what you know. And I said, well, what do I know? And they said, well, think about it. And I go, well, I know about death because just, I've had a lot of death in my life, starting as a teenager with mum, and then friends committing suicide, best friends dying of cancer and thalidomide affected, just dropping off the perches. And all of them came to me and said, there's no death. Like all of them, every single one of them.
Wow.
Mum did for like years and years and years. I would have dreams of seeing her in some strange place. And I'm going, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead. And she said, I'm not dead, Karen. There's no death. And I'm going, but you're dead. You're dead. I'm sure you're dead. I just didn't understand where I was or what was happening, or maybe I did at the time. But when I came back into my human consciousness in the morning, I tried to understand where I'd been and what I was doing. And I couldn't reconcile it. Like I didn't understand why I was with my mother and she was dead. And so it was like, they were like nightmare dreams, because not that they were nightmares, but I just couldn't reconcile that it was so real. Right. And I'm there with my mother and I'm back here, but she's dead. So that made me ask even more questions, like what the hell's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
And that big division there, here's third dimension.
Right.
And it's heavy. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit more
dense.
Weight to it. It's dense, really dense. And then when on the other side of this, it's so light. The lightness of being that's there is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was interesting. When I had these dreams, I didn't realize that I wasn't on Earth in the dreams. I thought that I was on Earth. So it was an Earth-like experience. So it wasn't like a blissful experience. It was just business as usual. And I don't know what was happening. I think that maybe I had a beautiful man on the show the other day, and his mother, Robert and Rini from South Africa, and he channels the archangels. And I was talking about the different astral worlds, and I'm quizzing him about that. And I'm saying, okay, so there are astral worlds that are like Earth, that are so Earth-like and real. Can we work out our karma on those astral worlds, or do we have to work it out? Like, do we have to come back into this third dimensionality to work on karma? And he says, no, you have to come back here to work on the karma, but you can practice on these other worlds. So I said, oh, so it's kind of like a dress rehearsal. And you can do that when you come to Earth, like when you're choosing your life and you're saying, okay, so I'm going to maybe, get sick or do that or do that or do that. Let's have a bit of a dress rehearsal on these astral worlds and see what that feels like, and see if I can cope with that before I come into this denser earthen experience to actually experience it. So we have these astral worlds where we can have dress rehearsals. And I think that in our dreams, we're often there, like we're having these experiences in these astral worlds where dead people can show up because there's subtler energy. So it's an astral, so they can create their astral body and have an interaction with you on these astral worlds. And when I was in those dreams with Mum, I thought I was on Earth. Like it was real. It was real.
Yeah, it is real.
Yeah, it's real. It is real. It's just not this real. It's another real.
It's another real. But that doesn't make it any less real.
Doesn't make it any less real.
When you have that aha, it's like, that's the part that needs to go in the manual, right?
Right.
You're going to have these experiences and they're going to feel like they're a lot real. Well, that's because they are.
That's because they are real. Exactly. I mean, the thing about real, what is real? This matrix real is just a creation of mind anyway. Mm-hmm. But we're experiencing it through physical senses, and that gives us that ability of tangibility. Like it gives us that experience of realness. But when you die, you realize that you've made it all up. It's been like a movie that you created. And
you had so much more power and choice, right?
Yeah. And then you die and you realize, oh, I didn't realize I had that so much power to create my world. Just like when you're lucid in a dream and you go, oh, I don't like how this dream's, I'm going to change it, and you change it with a thought. Right. We don't understand that we have that exact power here on Earth. Exactly the same power to change our reality in a thought and with a vibrational, tweak, and everything will change. Everything. And people don't understand that. And this is something that used to frustrate me when I went on, why don't people understand that? So like crap's happening and you think, right, I need to get solicitors, or I need to change that person, or convince that person to do this, or go out and get a job, or make money, or we don't understand that we create with our minds and our vibration. Right. And then when we change our perspective and our point of view and ramp up the visualization or ramp up the frequency, the outer circumstances acclimate to match our inner circumstances. Right. Yeah, and everything changes. I remember a friend of mine had a holistic bookshop, right? And he spent ages putting it up online. This is probably about almost how long ago? Yeah, about 16 years ago. So, and it was all going up on Amazon to sell his books, right? And then he rang me in a panic. It's all disappeared. They don't know where it's gone. Weeks of work. What am I going to do? And he's like panicking. What am I going to do? I've spent so much time learning this stuff. And I'm coaching him on the phone saying, well, now you know how to do it. It's not going to take you as much time to put it back on. What's the positive? Like, let's think about the positive. Let's accentuate the positive. And it took him a while, and then he calmed down from his panic, and he's like, yeah, I got this. I can do this. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And he calmed down. The next day he rings me. He goes, for some reason, it's all miraculously reappeared. Amazon does not know what happened. There's no explanation for it. When he calmed down and he just was like, right, this is cool. I've got this, and he changed his vibration. Bang.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing how this works.
And you've been working with people as would you call yourself a coach, a life coach? What would you, if we were to come to you, hey, Karen, I really could use some help getting out of where I'm stuck?
I'd say a mentor, really. I'm really a mentor for the New World teachers. I had a beautiful young woman, do my 12-week course, and she's like, she wants to be a life coach, and she wants me to, and I don't really call myself a life coach, because life coaches do things like, they do practical things. I don't do anything practical. I don't tell you how to market yourself, or organize you, or I just don't do anything practical. I just mentor you, get you connected to your guides, have you tuned into your inner wisdom, help you raise your vibration, and everything unfolds from there. Like forget about spending $10,000 on, internet marketing, your CEO coaches and all that. Change your frequency and things change.
It's true.
So so you can go off and see life coaches that help you do all that practical stuff, but that's not what I do. So I just like mentor the new world teachers, get them in tune with who they are, why they're here, have them remember their soul contract or their soul agreement, and get them on the path of making a difference, like the difference makers, the light weavers, the star seeds, the new world teachers, many names for people. So I guess that's
orchestration, right? In a way, do you feel like a divine director? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and make it a little pink here, a little blue there, and we got this.
Yeah. Orchestration. Well, I'm working with people's beliefs, because think about it. Remember, Barbara, when you were young, like how unsure you were of who you are as someone that helps others.
Right.
Like, who am I? What have I got to give? Do I need a degree? Do I need 15 letters after my name? What should I do? Like, so we're working with beliefs. Like, I had a man in a course I did years ago. I was teaching psychic development. He was an older man. He was probably younger than I am now, but at the time I was in my 30s. He was older. And he said to me, you're moving too fast. I don't understand this stuff. I'm not getting it, because, I'm teaching psychic development. So it's sort of strange. It's sort of woo-woo. In the consciousness of his mind, it's something he doesn't understand. So I go over to him and I say, well, how can I help you? And I touch him and I see a past life. And I said to him, not only do you understand this stuff, you've actually taught this in many past lives. You're a master at this stuff. You're not a novice. And he just instantly took that belief on, like tapped into the remembrance of that, the knowing. And then I asked him, 10, 15 minutes later, how are you going? He says, now you're moving too slowly. And so he shifted from confusion to like mastery in moments, just having an awakening or a remembrance of who he is as a spirit, and not the personality and the body and the history of the body now. Do you know what I mean? And I think that on our world that's happening. There's this accelerated remembering, accelerated awakening, where people wake up and instead of like me that took years to figure it out, they're just having that remembrance of who they are, who they've been, who they can be, why they're here. We ain't got time to mess around.
We don't.
We've got to get with the program pretty quick.
Yeah. And not only personally, but as a group.
Right. As a collective.
And I love that you work with people individually and then you work with them as a group as well.
Yeah. I love my group. They're such amazing people. I've seen so many amazing things happen with people, and it can be so easy. Yeah. But it's so interesting, Barbara, because once you tap into exalted wisdom, like you have the ability to speak to your guides or your higher self, or speak to your galactic family, or, the archangels, it doesn't mean you're a master in any way just because you have this great access, because now you've got to implement that wisdom into your life. And so that's what I see. I see a lot of people waking up from, I'm not psychic, I don't know nothing, to I'm now channeling exalted wisdom and the archangels and stuff, but that they're still humans. How do I implement the wisdom that flows through me into my daily life? That's the work. That's where the work is. I've seen so many amazing channels that bring through incredible wisdom that have fallen around in their own lives because they don't really know how to implement it. They're doing their best, they're trying. So I like to sort of really work with that. I mean, okay, now you're tapped in, that's great, but how are you implementing the wisdom in your life? How are you not believing your stressful thoughts? How are you changing your story? Yeah. How are you raising your vibe?
Because you have all that wisdom, it has to go through a body. That's
right.
what we forget sometimes, oh, that's right, I have a body that I'm in this dimension, and we got to stay with it. So
a body and a body of beliefs, like a physical body, which is a
conditioning.
Yeah, a body of conditioning.
Yes.
Exactly. And one of the conditionings, I was talking, can't remember, to somebody about separation, And Danielle Gibbons, who was channeling Mother Mary, and she was saying at the beginning of the 2000s, transparency was the biggest energy that was hitting our planet, that things were being revealed. You know, we talk about disclosure, exposure, reveal, transparency. And then she said, and then the next one is equality. And I started thinking about equality, like we're always talking about equality in men and women, blacks and whites, you know, rich and poor. We're always talking about equality in some way. But I was thinking that the biggest crime of inequality has been God and human. Like we've put this God energy on some pedestal that is unreachable, right? And religion says you have to be ordained as a minister and you have to be a priest for 3,000 years before you can talk to God.
And if you give me a little gold, that'd be helpful too.
I'll show you how to talk to God. And and you know, Neil Donald Walsh comes out with Conversation with God. You know, I'm talking to God, and then people say to him, what makes you so special to talk to God? And God says, I talk to everyone. It's not about who's talking to God. It's like, who's listening?
Right, exactly.
Because you are God. So that's where the biggest inequality has been, is this God being some energy perceived person, dude outside yourself that's telling you what to do. You know, that's the religious view. But it's amazing how the conditioned mind, even if you don't believe that to be a truth, how that becomes a part of your belief system. What? Oppression. Suppression. Yeah. So we're just unraveling these belief systems and finding a more enlightened view, a more equal, oneness, connected view. Love.
To talk about that, it's a 4-letter word.
Yeah, love. Best 4-letter word. Yeah. And you know what I love to do, Barbara Jean, is to make all this stuff really normal conversation, take it out of the woo-woo closet. You know, like I'm talking aliens to people, I'm talking to dead people to people. I just do it everywhere I go. And if they're like, oh, you're crazy or you're woo-woo, I'm like, you're crazy and woo-woo not to believe in this stuff, because this is who we are. This is who we are, and make it normal conversation. You know, because we've got to
wake up for breakfast, have a little coffee, little eggs, and you know, I was on the ship last night, but I didn't see you there.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Have a little chat with your galactic guides. Yeah, coffee.
Normal conversation, you know.
Absolutely.
It is at my house, and I'm sure it is at your house too.
Absolutely normal conversation. I got the mob yakking to me the whole time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's normal conversation. You're never lonely, that's for sure. You've got a whole spiritual mob talking to you. Because I spend a fair bit of time alone. I'm living alone now. And I'm never alone. Like I never feel alone. Like I feel like the house is crowded, really crowded.
Yeah. And that time, do you find that you're talk to yourself too? Like when you're doing something, I do, but when I produce, I talk myself through it, you know, when I'm doing it. And I think you need that time alone though. Don't you just love that the hermitage part of the stillness that you find in that is such a strong base?
Yeah, I think that being alone is really important, because being alone gets you connected. Because when you're always looking for stimulation outside yourself, then you rely on that. You rely on, you know, whether it's a screen or a friend or, you know, like what you're doing in your job or where you're traveling to, like you're relying on that outer stimulation to be your life. And yet it is the inner conversation that is your life, because it doesn't matter what you're doing in your outer world, there's still the inner conversation going on. So if you get still enough and alone enough to like really get with that conversation, what is that conversation you're having constantly in your head about who you are, why you're here, and what guidance are you receiving? And yeah, because it doesn't matter what you're doing, that inner conversation. I remember when I was young, and I had a lot of trauma when I was young, And I'm like, I'm going to get away from this and go backpacking with my girlfriends around Europe. And here I was in Switzerland, looking at some of the most magnificent mountains and scenery in the world. And, you know, by all rights, I should be awestruck and feeling completely depressed. And I had this realization, it doesn't matter where I go in the world, I take myself with me.
Right, right, exactly. What is it? No matter where you go, there you are. You know?
Yeah. So I've got like this conversation in my head about, oh, poor me, oh, woe's me, oh, life's so bad. You know, it's there no matter where you are, like, oh, beautiful mountain, oh, poor me. There you are.
Sometimes when you get in that poor me, that pitiful, that deep, darker spiral, it's hard to get out of that. It's hard to pull out. And so sometimes if you can't do it yourself, sometimes you need a teacher, you need someone, a friend, someone to just say, not take you seriously. The moment you take it seriously, you're done, right? So you got to be pulled out of that and shaken up a little and move on, and not buy what it's selling you, right?
Not buy what it's selling you. Yeah, absolutely. I had this great reading recently. I was in the country with some friends, and there was an oracle deck. It was a beautiful goddess oracle deck, and someone gave me a reading. And usually those car readings are pretty, you know, like, yeah, they're not that fabulous. But there's something was said on this oracle deck which just hit me. It said, you know, it was talking about 3 levels: the mind, the heart, and the body, I think. And it was saying in the mind, it says, you know, you're here to teach people, blah, 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 and you punch holes in people's arguments. And I'm like, oh boy, do I punch holes in people's arguments.
I like that.
People want to argue for their limitation.
Right.
You say to them, you're an extension of infinite possibility. You're a genius creator. You're an extension of the source. You can do anything. You've got this. And they go, no, I can't. No, I can't do that. No, I haven't. No, because my parents were persecuted, because I come from this background, because I have to be sorrowful or upset or limited in some way, because, and people have these massive arguments that uphold their limitation.
Right.
And so I'm punching holes in their argument.
I love it. Punching holes in their
argument.
I'm going to write that down. I love that. We do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
We argue for it. And I love it when people punch holes in mine. If I'm in my pity party, my limited story, and somebody goes, is that really what you want to believe? Is that who you're going to be? I'm like, oh, thanks for reminding me. Like, just knock me out of it. Most people go, yes, this is who I am. This is my experience.
Right.
This is what my life is. Listen to me. Listen to my sad story.
Yes.
And I'm like, what's it teaching you?
I have so much invested in it.
I have so much invested in it. Right. Mm-hmm. I love it. The investment thing again. I love it.
It's so true, though. I've been doing this lately myself where I'm so tired.
Right. I know. I've done that lately. I know. And then look at us, the two of us, like, get with each other, and we're so excited. We're like 2 little teenage kids laughing.
Right.
Like,
I'm so tired. It's so cool. Such BS. It is such BS.
It is.
I just met 2 friends that, and I'll ask you this question about a mentor. Who's your mentor? I just met 2 ladies. I had them on my show. They were each of them were 89 years old.
Right.
And they both are still doing their work to help raise humanity's consciousness. That's why they were here. And they've been teaching and working their whole life in this. And so what they tell me is, and I'm going to be 69, is where, you know, you're just a little whippersnapper. You're just getting started. You know?
I know.
Yeah. We have 20 more years, you know?
Yeah. The whole, you know, one of the things, Mum died at 50. And one of the things she never wanted to do was to grow old. Like, I remember her at 42 complaining about being so old. And think about people at 42, how young they are, right? They're so bloody young.
Yeah.
But, you know, back then, when you hit 40, you're middle-aged. And so 50, you're old. Yeah, and she didn't want to grow old, and she didn't. But she left me with that those beliefs, you know, that
Right.
conditioning, which I've been unraveling in my own world as I get older. I hit 50 and I'm like, I'm the age my mother, and then like 10 years later, okay, I've survived my mother by 10 years. And I can't think about this whole aging thing, and I think about it in a very galactic way. Like if you're an ET that lives for 400 years, 50 or 60 or 69 is a teenager.
It is. It
Right?
is.
It's a teenager. And as we're evolving consciously and physically, because as consciousness evolves, manifestation evolves, which is the physical form, DNA evolves, you know, we're going to live so much longer, so much longer. So these ideas that we have about age that exist as the mainstream narrative right now are not going to be the truth in 10 or 20 years. It's going to be, yeah. So
And
what are we buying into? Again, the buying thing. What are we investing in? What are we buying into? This concept of age. So the physical body ages, but are you aging? Who are you going to be inside that? Yeah. So it's really interesting. It's an interesting
we're
conversation.
interesting beings, don't you think? We're like, I love our ability to create and be creative, and I think that works. That's a part of you, that you're always growing and changing and transforming yourself. And so who was one of your mentors that really made a difference in your life, would you say?
Oh, I've got so many.
Yeah.
The book's
I love
conversation with God really rocked my world.
Mhm.
Because when Neil was having his conversation with God in the books, and he was asking all his questions, I started asking, I'm endless, never short of a question. I started asking questions that he wasn't asking in the book. And I realized I'm having my own conversation with God, or who I call the mob, and then I'm like, who is God? What is that comprised of? More conversations. Who am I speaking to? What is this energy that I'm speaking to? And they have never dumbed down the information. They gave it to me in a way that I couldn't understand for many years, but they never dumbed it down. So when I did courses, Meet Your Spirit Guides, I would put on my tape, the little tapes, put it in the tape recorder and press the sort of like, you're cruising along a path in a beautiful forest and you come to a babbling brook and you sit down and your spirit guide's there and you meet them, and sort of visualization. No one was ever there. And I'm like, why have I not got this image of a spirit guide? I'd go to people, everyone would give me a different name and image of a spirit guide. And I'm looking for some sort of like reality, like who is talking to me? What is there? And they're laughing their heads off, Barbara Jean, as I'm trying to figure this out, because they're not going to dumb it down for me.
Right.
So when I'm suffering one day saying, I can't get this right, they just go, oh God, Karen, we have been so many manifestations. Remember that you are the creator of your reality. So if you want to have a visualization of us, pick one and we'll show up as it.
Right.
Rather than showing up as a past life image or Jesus or Mother Mary or a galactic guide, they're like, we're consciousness, we're a stream of consciousness or a social memory complex, or like they're just so much more than physical manifestation of one identity. Because if I was to meet Barbara Jean in spirit, I wouldn't meet Barbara Jean. I would meet this energy that has been so much.
Exactly.
So how do you put that into an image? Like you've been galactic and you've been human and you've been probably mountains and star systems. I mean, who knows? What does that look like? Because it doesn't look like a personality and an identity, right? So that's why I say they never dumbed it down for me. Even when I screamed out for like, please give me an identity, please. So identity would step forward like Jesus, and he'd say, this was one of my faces, but this is not who I am. This was just one that's kind of really big on your planet.
Right. And everyone's in agreement to this, and we don't want to, shake it up too much.
Yeah. But think about the Master Jesus, like that consciousness, how many lives, like Jesus is an alien. He was he had graduated Earth School before he came back into the life as Jesus to teach and
Mhm.
help human minds punch holes in their arguments,
Exactly.
arguing for their
Right.
limitation. So so they've sort of shown me who they are and what they are, and it's nothing that our linear minds really understand. That's why I call them the mob.
And- Well, that's because if otherwise that is just a human perspective, a human
Perspective.
needing a human perspective. And
Exactly.
when you step outside of that, then
You've got a
bingo.
cosmic perspective, and then a spiritual perspective. Like you can see the world from a human, point of view, or a cosmic point of view, or a spiritual point of view. Like there is just this ever
It just
expanding
keeps
vista.
going.
Keeps
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I could always say wrong, Fibonacci sequence,
Yeah.
And that's how much love we have, right, in us too. All the whole love part of it is like exponential as well.
Absolutely. Love is the matrix. Love is like who we are, what we're made of. So many people out there looking for love. I watch it with my friends and my daughter and my daughter's friends. Everyone's looking for love. And I think to myself, you can't go out there be looking for love, because love is who you are. If you're looking for love, you're denying who you are.
All the wrong places, right?
All the wrong places. Love is the matrix of the universe. It's what the universe is made of. It's not a thing that you gain. It is who we are. It is like, I know it's unexplainable, but
Yeah. And the expansion and just our ability to love. I remember learning that. I thought, oh, I had to only love a person a certain way. I could love and have a husband, or love and love my children, but you mean I could be loved by this person and that, when you're all the ideas of all of that is just blown away, where I burst in tears looking at a tree, so it's like
the love of a tree. Oh, how beautiful is the love of a tree. You've got a thing, namaste, Barbara and Karen from Corey. I don't know how to say her last name. Namaste to you too. I'm just looking for any comments, if anyone's got any questions or comments, if we're live.
Oh yeah, that's great. Because I don't have them on my end, so.
Don't you? Oh, I was just looking on your Cosmic Oracle page, Facebook Live.
While I'm doing this, so that's good.
But listen, I was going to say to you, for people, because I'm going to upload this to my channel as well, for people that don't know your show, tell them about where you are, what's happening. We're live on live radio now as well.
We're on the Cosmic Oracle show. It's every Friday night in LA, Los Angeles, from 5 to 7 Pacific Standard Time, and it's free. Just show up and have an open mind. And
what's the radio station called?
It's on Revolution Radio.
Revolution Radio. I love that. I love
Revolution
the name
Radio.
of that.
We're in Studio B, and they have a chat room there, a chat room. And so it's done here on Facebook, on the Cosmic Oracle Show on Facebook, and on Revolution Radio. And then I have the Cosmic Oracle YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. So you'll upload this to the.
We have all these things going, and I love doing the show, and I get to have people like you. I'm so excited to have you here, and I don't know, one of these days we'll get to meet. How long have we known each other and never got to actually hug each other and say hello, or hang out?
Well, we've had a few plans to meet in Egypt, but COVID put a damper on that. You had some plans to take a group of people to Egypt, but that didn't go through because of but it'll happen. Yeah, just a bit.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. And then, so let our people know who's going to be watching my show and how they can reach you. And let's hear about your show and about your school and some of the things that you do on a weekly, monthly, daily basis yourself.
Oh, well, I've got the show like you each week. So I speak to a different person each week, Accentuate the Positive Media. I used to call it radio because I was on radio, but when I went on YouTube, I started calling it media because it's not just on radio, it's on YouTube and other platforms. Do you know that Facebook in Australia has taken, I don't know if they've done it in other countries, but has taken down every media outlet. Like all news has gone off Facebook in Australia. There's not allowed to be any news. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, my show is called Media. So they said to me, you might want to change the name of your show because you're seen as a media outlet, you know, and I'm like, wow, stuff is getting real, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the censorship that's going on in our world. So yeah, I think I've still called it Accentuate the Positive Media, but I had to change it from news and media to I don't know, the categories on Facebook were astrology and psychic ability. I mean, the categories are pretty crazy, but yeah, it's on YouTube and a million other platforms, so like audio platforms, but everything can be seen on karenswain.com. Yeah, and I mentor people one-on-one, and we have a group once a week called the Inner Sanctum Group where we get together and chat. And you've been a guest, and I invite someone from the show to once a month to come in and share their wisdom. People in the Inner Sanctum Group get to meet the people I speak with on the show, which I think is really nice to have that interaction, not just that listening and watching. You can have that interaction. I think that's, you know, if I've got access to all these amazing people across the world, I want to give that access to my little tribe as well, so that they can quiz people and chat with them. Yeah. You've got a group as well, right?
I do. Lucky me. I mean, it's a miracle. I just show up on Fridays. It's a miracle how this all happened. And I just thank Great Spirit for it. And hopefully it comes again and again and again until it doesn't, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how long do you think you're going to be doing this, Karen Swain?
Like your friends, as long as I live. Like Esther says, happy, healthy, happy, healthy, happy, healthy, dead. There's no retiring, because it's, you know, it's part of who you are and why you're here. You just
Someone asked me that, or when you're going to retire, and I go, I don't think I'm ever going to retire.
Right.
Like, that
Why
whole
retire?
idea, that concept, I don't even like the word.
I had beautiful Valerie Barrow on the show the other day, who wrote the book called Alturinga, which is an entity that she channels, who lives in Uluru. And he was a captain of a Palladian starship that crashed to Earth billions of years ago. Not at the beginning of time, but at the beginning of the last evolutionary step in the current Homo sapien body form. Because I'm sure that there were, you know, civilizations on our world that had evolved, and then, you know, like the Atlanteans and the Lemurians before the current Homo sapien evolved. And so it went from a primitive man to an intellectual man, and the Palladians were overseeing that. And Alturinga was a, you know, captain of this starship that was overseeing the evolutionary step of the Homo sapien. Part of the creative gods, or the creators of this world, or the creator of this particular body form and consciousness that we're wearing now. But there was another group of people that wanted to control. There was a bit of a war going on. So she channeled all this information and wrote it down in the book. And she's 88 now. She's still going. She's going strong. She's fabulous. She was a little forgetful. I found that with the conversation I had with her, you know, when you ask someone a question and you set it up with detail, and then by the time you've said the detail, you've forgotten the question. How do you do that?
Yes. That means you're psychic. Your timing's always off.
She did that with everything I asked her. She didn't appear to answer anything I asked her. She would just go into detail, like how her husband traveled a lot and he learned a lot of languages. And I'm like, tell us about this stuff, the Palladian starship. And she'd go into all this detail that had nothing to do with the question. And I just had to keep bringing her back. And
That would be fun when we get older, right? To do that.
I wondered if that was her age, because she didn't appear to be dottery at all. But I've done that a million times. People ask me a question and I start setting it up and going into detail. I'm like, what did you ask me?
There's freedom to that, isn't there?
I don't know if it's freedom. Freedom to just say whatever you like, regardless of what people ask you. Freedom to just chat.
Yeah, I just checked out. I'll be right back.
Just checked out. Yeah, exactly.
I checked with my group, and I'm just back.
But I love talking to these ancient elders, you know, in their 90s and late 80s, because they have these amazing stories. It's like, it's not just for the young starseeds that think that they're the only ones that have got with the program, that there have been people on Earth for over 90 years that awakened to their cosmic lineage and knew who they were and why they were here and what they were here to do, and
made an impact.
and made an impact.
Mhm.
Yeah, that book has been read by, I don't know, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. It's
Mm.
changed a lot of people's lives. She's you know, like the Barbara Marciniak books.
Right.
Remember those? Oh, how old's Barbara now? She's got to be
Sorry,
getting on.
my age, I think.
Oh, I thought she'd be
69.
older.
Really? Is she-
No,
Maybe
yeah.
she's
Yeah.
there somewhere.
And think about Jane Roberts in the 60s channeling Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I speak to a lot of people in the States, especially because the States is such a huge country with so many people who awaken, and then they're in their community or cities at large, they feel completely alone. They're like, no one is having this conversation. And when you think about people like Jane Roberts in the 60s having it then, and you know, Valerie nearly 90 having it, so it's a conversation that's been had for a long time. What's her name, Blavatsky, in the
Madame
1800s,
Blavatsky, yes.
Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society.
Yes.
But it's, and so even though we're marinating it,
Oh my God, I love
do you?
love
Even
her.
though we're marinating in this availability of information and awareness, the world at large still is not. And I see that by people reaching out to me to join the group saying, you know, I love talking about this stuff and I've got no one around me who has this conversation.
I would
Yeah.
think by now that would have already, oh, that was so yesterday, but you're right.
You would
it's
think,
still-
wouldn't you?
Yes, because we've been chipping away, you know, that's for a while now. Okay, maybe we can just get out the big chainsaw. We've been too nice. I don't know.
Well, we have been chipping away. When you look on the internet at the amount of shows like yours and mine and consciousness, it's huge. It's exponentially huge. It's
Yeah.
still not as much as shows like Entertainment Tonight or what the Kardashians are doing and all that sort of stuff, or sports shows, but it is still huge. There is so much available information out there on the internet. Someone said to me on the show once that the internet was created or given to us from our galactic brothers and sisters to spread consciousness awareness, specifically for that. I mean, you give it to humans and they stack it full of porn. It's like, yay, the internet, let's share porn. That was the first thing. It was like the blockchain was the same thing. The blockchain is ET wisdom that was given, technology that was given to the minds of humans.
Right?
And the first thing they did with it was share porn.
Of course.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, thank you. We'll leave on that up note for our break. So we'll be here on a break just in a few seconds here. And here we go. Everyone stay tuned. We'll be back at 6:04. Stay tuned for this break.
So the mic's.
We're live.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Be evasive, but that doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth. That's what I'm saying. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, and there were giants and I'm also after that. When the sons of God came to unto the daughters of men, indicating that there were giants before Nephi and sons of God plural. I don't know if it's coming down. No, that's right. I'm Steve Crawford, host of Factor Live. Join me every Sunday night from 10 p.m. till midnight Eastern Standard Time on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Check it out. here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past, the present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here. Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio. If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourself. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us, embalm us, fire is tempting. And if we burn, you burn with us. Are you awake yet? I hope. We tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your government around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence. The hands of the bankers and the elite. The war is coming. And it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening. We'll take this short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. And we have with us today on the show, we have the amazing, the beautiful, the wonderful, the talented. Let's have a round of applause. Yay! And the crowd goes, all over the world for Karen SWAIN. Welcome back to the show, Karen.
Thanks,
for coming
darling.
on. And we want to thank everyone for giving donations to Revolution Radio. Go to freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips.com and give whatever you can, $5, $10. And we really appreciate it to keep everything going, moving, changing, grooving. And thanks again in advance for your generosity. All right, Karen SWAIN, we're on to our next hour. How did that go so fast, right?
I know it went totally fast, and I completely forgot to record it like you guys said I would.
Well, I am, so we're good to go.
We're good to go.
recorded it, so we're good. And so I thought in the second hour, we'd talk a little bit about, I know we talked about consciousness and we talked about a little bit about death, all these fun topics, you know.
There is no death.
Yeah, and then about, we talked a little bit about aging, and then I thought we would talk about our ability to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
And because we're the illness, you know, and we won't say that word that's going on in the world. I guess we don't have to, but our ability to heal ourselves and change ourselves and transform ourselves, and that's a lot of your work. And how does one go about doing that when they go, you know, I know I think we said this before, where I know I need some changes, but I'm not. It's like I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, you know, when I think of the cosmic perspective, when I think of ET life and what is available to ET life and why we want to evolve, they don't have the same challenges that human life does. So that, like we talked about aging, so they live for maybe 400, maybe 1,000 years, and the body doesn't age like the human body. They don't have illness like we have. And it's like, why? So if we evolve into a more galactic race, why are we not having the same challenges as we are in third density? And so illness comes into that understanding that everything that is happening to us, including our illness, is there to teach us in some way. And what is it teaching us? It's teaching us how to shift and raise our vibration. So expanding consciousness and being more loving and more connected is what we're here to do. And when we're not doing that, then we activate certain genes or certain parts of our DNA that is going to implement some dis-ease in our body to give us that experience of contrast, if you like, contrast to, you know, what it's like to be healthy. And from that experience, it pushes us into understanding who we are more. And so healing, like I put a post on my difference makers page or group, I think it was the page, about the med beds. You know, you've heard people talk about the med beds. So what the med beds do is you put your physical body into this, you know, this ET or alien technology, yeah, and it can recalibrate all the frequency and DNA back to ultimate, you know, back to health, basically. So anything can be healed. So people went crazy for that post. I want one, I want one, I want one. And I was thinking about it, and everything that we can do with technology, we can do with our consciousness, including having a conversation like this across, you know, you're over there in the United States and I'm here in Australia. We can do that with our consciousness, but we just don't understand that we can. So as we evolve our consciousness, we just tap into the truth of our power, and everything that we can do with technology, we can do with consciousness, including healing ourselves instantly. So why do some people heal instantly through miraculous healings or meditation and others don't? Because the disease exists to give us an experience, and from that experience, we're learning about who we are. So if we don't get that lesson, then the disease will continue to exist. So you remember we spoke about in the first hour, mum dies of cancer, and I'm in my teenage years and I'm saying, why do people get sick? Like, why? And how do I heal them? Or how can we heal? So little did I know when I'm like 14, 15, 16, that I had been a doctor in many past lives asking that same question. And in some of those past lives, I was not available to the answer because I was too in my head. I was too scientific. I was only looking at the physical combination of disease and not looking at the consciousness, you know, application of disease. So we're in a world right now where dis-ease is a big topic of conversation in the world, and they're rolling out some therapy, you know, drug that they say is going to stop it. But actually that is not the answer. That is the old technology. And we're moving into a time where understanding that health is about our consciousness and not about what drug we take has to change. It's like there's a big tipping point that's going on in the world right now. So as we're being forced for many countries to take a pharmaceutical, because normally when you get sick, you have a choice. If you know you have a choice, I can heal myself naturally or through diet or exercise or herbs or homeopathy or acupuncture, or I can go to the doctor. Like we believe we have that choice, right?
Mhm.
But now where that choice has been taken away from us, even when we're not sick, we're being asked to take a pharmaceutical that is going to stop us or prevent us from getting sick. And people are starting to think that's not something that I want to be forced into. And now people are waking up to choice. Yeah, it's a big conversation, Barbara Jean. It's a big conversation.
It is. And the idea of how does a placebo work?
Right, exactly. It's your mind. Your mind creates all of it.
Yeah.
So if you wake up to who you are as a deliberate creator and you realize that your mind is creating your world, then your mind is also creating your disease. Even though, like my mom died of cancer and everyone in my family died of cancer, like everyone, they all dropped like flies and they all died of cancer. So statistically speaking, I should be dying of cancer. I went to my ex-husband's partner's death. She died at 49 of cancer, and found out at her funeral that her mother had died at 49 of cancer. And I was sitting next to a friend who looked up at me and said, oh, yes, it's very hereditary. And I thought, what BS, right? If that was true, then I should be dead. So I wrote an article saying I'm fat 50 and I should be dead because by all accounts, I should be dead because my mother died at 50 of cancer. It doesn't mean because your family, holds a certain frequency or identity that you have to too. And so
It's a lie. It's such a huge lie that that lie becomes the normal. And it's
that
not,
lie becomes
right?
exactly that
And
lie
so
becomes the mainstream, right?
yeah. I think we've been doing this our whole lives, challenging everything though.
Question everything. Yeah, question everything, because there is a mainstream narrative out there that has been based in science, like prehistoric science, that they say cutting edge science, and yet there is science that's coming out now, epigenetics and Bruce Lipton and Nassim Haramein, and there are so many brilliant people on the planet.
Love Dr. Joe.
Dr. Joe, everyone loves Dr. Joe, and that are just knocking over the mainstream narrative, the mainstream science, and it's about time. But yeah, we've been fed a story, and then we collectively believe it, and we're still being fed a story through the mainstream MSM, and through the so we're being fed this story. But I think what's happening at this precipice in human history and everything that we're going through is that, unlike before, there are people that are rebels like us, Barbara Jean, who are not buying the story. I'm now looking at the clock, it's 12:12. They're not buying the story, and they're starting to say, no, I'm not buying it. Most people are. I was away with a friend recently, and her neighbor was like, oh yeah, I've got to take the vac because I want to travel, and I've got to do this, I've got to do what they say, I've got to do what they say I've got to do. So there's a lot of people out there that are swallowing the story hook, line and sinker, but there are a lot of very loud rebels out there that are not buying the story, and they're getting very loud about it. And then the MSM is saying that they're crazy conspiracy theorists, but the more they're pushing back, the louder they're getting. It's a really interesting time in history right now, and health is at the precipice of this conversation.
It is, and it's about our own responsibility for our own health.
Right. Our responsibility
back home. Let's bring that back home, out of the hands of someone else who's, whatever their reasons are, maybe, and usually, most of the time, don't have our best interest at heart.
Right. I mean, I think most people go into, medicine because they want to help people, but they get swept up in a sea, in a stream of consciousness, which is about survival, making money. They get paid huge amounts of money. Pharmaceutical companies are competing with each other. I'll pay you more, I'll pay you this, I'll give you benefits, I'll give you trips overseas. And they get lost in the luxury. They just, like, energy healers are starving and medical doctors are thriving financially. What's going on there? Like, how's that working?
Right.
How's that working? And so then they put their kids in private school, and they cannot give up that lifestyle because now they're in debt to the eyeballs. And so it's a really interesting system.
Yeah.
So
And I'm one of those ones where life isn't so black and white. You know, there's a lot of gray area where a lot of life gets done too, where for me, I wouldn't be here because if I didn't have Western medicine, right? And so, but also it's where you go with it and what you do with it, with the information, the energy that you have, and I love it that I might really think this today, and tomorrow I might have a whole different opinion.
and you're allowed to, look, a lot of people ask me, what do my guides say about this and what do my guides say about that when they're asking questions about their life? And my guides often say, should I do this or that? And my guides often say, there is no right choice. There is just a choice, and then line up with it. Make a choice and line up with it. So if you're going to go that way, if you're going to go the medical, I remember a friend of mine who's since died, she used to take people to see John of God in Brazil. So it was all about energy healing. Right. And then she got sick and she refused the medical Western sort of medical model. And she was just getting sicker. But she wasn't, I shouldn't really talk about it like that, but, she was given a lesson that she was struggling to learn. And so no models helped her live. Like, she did eventually go the allopathic route, and she still, chose to leave her body. But she told me of a story of a woman that had cancer who did the John of God thing. And then while she's at John of God, she decided to come home and have the chemotherapy. So, meditating, gave her that. So it's really not about what's right or wrong. It's about your powers of discern. It's your power of decision. If you make a decision with anything that you do in your life, then make that the best decision you've made. Right. Make that decision. So I'm going to choose to do this, and this is the thing that's going to help me. It doesn't really matter what it is, if it's the drug or if it's the acupuncture or the energy healer, because ultimately we are healing ourselves. Yeah. It's interesting that they call, when you go in for an operation, they call it theatre. It is the theatre of life. You go to the theatre to have an operation. Like, we are in this theatre of life, right? This theatre that happens, right? So there was a surgeon, talk about placebo effect, that was understanding this, and he used to put people in the theatre and give them operations but not do what he was supposed to do. He maybe cut them open, stitch them up, and then they would believe that they'd have this vital operation and they would heal. Right. That was the placebo effect working, because they went into the theatre, they had the theatre. Right. And they've had this operation, they've got stitches to prove it, like, that's healed me. I'm now healed, because our thoughts create our reality. Our thoughts create our reality. And the theatre around us is determining, like, we're choosing where to put our belief. Do I put my belief in that, or do I put my belief in that? Like, we're choosing. We are the choosers. We are the creators. We are the choosers of our reality.
So hopefully we have our mind open enough that we gather a lot of information, right? Because we are in the information age too, that we can gather a lot of information before we make a decision. And doesn't have to.
We don't need information to make a decision. We just got to decide. Am I going to be? When I was a massage person, before I became an energy healer, before I became a mentor, I've been through a few incarnations in this one lifetime. I had this woman that I was massaging that said, "Oh my God, this feels so good. Will you go and see my son? He's in hospital. He had a motorbike accident, and he's very sick in hospital and dying with strep." And I'm like, "You want me to massage? You're sick and dying?" Because I'm massaging people for like it's like a pleasurable thing. I'm not really healing people at this stage. I was in my 20s. Anyway, I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go see your son." So I went into the hospital up the road here to see this boy who had been smashed up in a motorbike accident, and he had strep infection. He was very ill. He was, Barbara Jean, I'm going to do metric now, but he was over 6 foot, like 6'4", and he was 36 kilos. Like, if you just double that to pounds, that's how much. He was a skeleton with skin in a bed. Like, he was a skeleton in the bed. And I looked at this skeleton in this bed, and I'm thinking, this mother wants me to massage this guy. What was she thinking? But you know what? It makes me cry thinking about it. Somehow that mother knew that even though I didn't know I was a healer, she did. She felt the healing coming from my hands when I was massaging her, and she knew that I could help her son. So I'm perplexed. I'm standing next to this boy who's just dying in front of me, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this guy? So I just sat down next to him and started talking to him, and just started channeling really in that moment, and just gave him a choice and said, you have a choice whether you can live or whether you can die. And it's not in the hands of the infection that you have. It's not in the hands of the hospital. It's not in your mother's hands. It's not in my hands. It's your choice.
Exactly.
You can choose to live or you can choose to die. And that's basically what I gave this young man. I think I just channeled it, Barbara Jean, because when I'm in my 20s, I didn't know that. I just didn't. So then I did some Reiki on him. And I went back to see him a week later, and all the nurses came running up to me and they're like, what did you do? What did you do? What did you do to this kid? What did you do? And I'm like, why? Thinking, did he die? And they said, after your visit, he completely transformed. He started eating. He put on like 5 kilos in a week. His infection cleared up. Like, he is back on track to full recovery. What did you do to him? So at the time, I didn't know that I could say to them, I gave him a choice. I said, oh, I did Reiki. I did some Reiki. So I did some energy channeling, which would have helped these nurses see life in a different perspective to just the mainstream narrative that they have, right? Even though that really wasn't what healed him. It was what helped him, but it wasn't what he's like, I've got a choice. I've got a choice. I can choose to live. And he chose to live, right? And when he chose to live, he chose to heal.
Right.
And it was amazing to see the transformation of that decision, the power of decision. I did that. I was a chronic asthmatic and a chronic hay fever kid. And one day I just said, I was in my early 20s, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't leave the house and worry that I've got my puffer with me, or go into a dress shop and have a sneezing attack because of the dust. I don't want to live like this anymore. I choose not to have it. Bang, I healed. Stopped.
Oh, I like that. I like
Stopped. So
That's
like healing can be that simple or not, depending on the turning a light, depending on the theater that we need in order to convince us, punch holes in that argument that we have called I am sick and because I've always been like this, because I've always been asthmatic. I was born an asthmatic.
my parents invested in me being an asthmatic.
Right.
They're telling me who I am. If I question it, they remind me.
And so I'm still, like you, I'm still grappling with that too, with the age thing. I'm stiff, I'm overweight, I'm tired. Is this age? And then I go, no, that's just a story I'm telling myself. You're not old. You're only old if you think you're old. You're only tired if you think you're tired. You're only stiff if you think you're stiff. What would a 20-year-old do? Well, a 20-year-old go out for a jog. What would a 60-year-old do? Not do that. Not do that.
Yeah, I walked today. I know what I want, and so I know what I don't want, and then I don't know anything about. This is my whole process with. I don't know anything about being 69. Kind of like that. Oh, this will be interesting. What am I going to do with this time here at 69? What trouble can I get into? What, kind of like that. And then bringing the body a little bit where I'm feeling that my body wants more attention at 69 than it did. And where I just need some kind of, okay, Barbara, you're doing a good job. We're going to take you for a walk. We're going to feed you some good stuff, and you'll be okay. And you're going to be better.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. We've got a couple of questions here. We've got some great questions. Rachel says, can you please discuss the topic of energetic protection? We have discussed this before, but the last couple of weeks I felt strong, imposing energies that I feel are trying to overtake me. Ooh, that's a good thing. And then somebody else says, Corey says, does galactic consciousness have a plan for how to cure illness? For example, is there a plan to assimilate what could be the worst thing into something that accelerates ET contact and healing? A couple of great questions. Let's go.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about protection?
Yeah,
wanna-
let's start with protection. Go for it. And then
Well, from my point of view, I've explored this a lot, is that everything acclimates to frequency. So like attracts like in all areas of life. So if you're feeling like you're being attacked by nefarious energies or ETs or, dead people, that it's all about frequency attracted to frequency. So when you raise your vibration and you have a different frequency, you don't have to worry about protection, because you won't attract that same energy. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't attract that same energy. When you're feeling low and upset or down, you're now a vibrational match to that energy that's out there. So when I was young, this was something I grappled with a lot, because as I started doing healing courses and expanding my consciousness and my psychic abilities, my field started to expand exponentially. And if I didn't clean up my own poor me, sorry sort of thoughts and went out into the supermarket, oh my God, I felt completely attacked by life. Like I could feel everybody's everything, and I could feel at the similar or same frequency that I was feeling. So if I'm doing poor me, I'm not good enough, and, criticizing myself, I was available to that energy everywhere. And there were times where I was completely overwhelmed, because most people on earth are in their complaint mindset. It's their default setting. So as an empath out there marinating in fear and feeling all of it, I would drop my basket and run home and sort of rock and go, I'm not going out again. I'm not going out. and then I had to clean up my vibration before I went shopping. Like I had to vibe at a different vibe. And it's the same with protection. You don't need protection when you're a loving being, because love is like this force field around you, and negative energy can't penetrate it because it's not a vibrational match with it. So the best way to protect ourselves is to do the work. Like, why are we believing our stressful thoughts? What are we believing about ourselves? What are the subconscious programmings that are still running us? And when you do the work and you punch holes in those arguments and you start creating a new perspective, or a truer perspective, or a more connected perspective to who you are as source energy, as soul, as infinite, creative, pure, positive energy here to raise the vibration and the consciousness of humanity, then that story becomes your reality. And inside that story, no protection is needed. So that's my perspective. A lot of people argued with me about that. They're like, oh no, you have to cover yourself with white light, and you've got to ask Archangel Michael to come and protect you. And but it's our thoughts that we need to protect ourselves from, not other entities or other people.
And it's kind of like that relationship with yourself too.
Right.
And they say that if you think you are cursed, you are.
Right. You are.
You
Absolutely.
are. And
Exactly.
so if you can think that you're cursed, you can also think that you're uncursed.
Absolutely.
As easily.
Absolutely.
Sometimes with working with people, or if I know I'm going to go to a place that it's not as comfortable to be in, where I will bring my auric field really closer around my body and be aware of my whole field.
Of your energy field, yeah.
I'll just bring it in so it's a little tighter and it's a little closer around me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being so out.
So
And
out there, you can do that.
Okay to do that if you're going down a dark alley in the street, but I don't worry about that so much either. In a way, I get that, but I think for me, the body wants to know too, and so I'll just say, okay, I'll just bring it in a little bit tighter, a little bit closer. Sometimes also I will put up like a few symbols around me. But how often do I do that? A very rare.
Yeah.
Occasion. It's very rare. And that's because I'm probably working on 10 other things at once.
Yeah.
Like
But if you
that.
think you need that, then you're going to need that, right?
Yeah.
Because your thoughts create your reality. If you think you need protection and you don't protect yourself, then you're going to feel unprotected. I mean, it's crazy how powerful our thoughts are. We just don't realize. If you don't protect yourself and you think you need protection, then you're going to be vulnerable because you create that reality. Like you create that. Yeah. So we just don't understand. I shouldn't say that. We have to remember to understand how powerful our thoughts are. Like we set the rules. We make the rules. We make the rules. We make the rules. There are no rules. I remember Seth said in the Seth books, there are only 2 rules to life, not laws, but rules. 1, you create your own reality. And 2, there are no limits.
Yeah, no limits. I totally agree.
No
with
limits.
Totally.
You create your own reality and there are no limits. Like they are the rules to live by. I create my own reality and there are no limits. So if you're having a limited experience, whether it is an illness that you perceive that you don't want, maybe loving what you have is exactly what your soul wants to experience. And so appreciating it for the experience it's giving you is the way to have that unlimited experience inside a limited physical experience, perspective, like having an unlimited perspective inside a what seems like a limited experience. So as you're grappling with feeling protected and feeling attacked, it makes you dive deeper into how energy works and understand it better. Yeah,
exactly. And you know when it's your energy because your energy feels amazing.
Yeah.
If someone else's energy comes in and you feel that, again, it's awareness. That's that stillness within you that you know, and you feel it and you can just, it's just gone in a second. Or like you said, it won't even come in this field. And I remember, I think I told that on the story with a friend of mine who he just stopped doing cocaine, and he was a cocaine addict for many years, and he just stopped it. And this was in October, and we were in a Halloween, and when he's walking with me during that hour walk, 3 people came up to him and asked him, "Hey, do you know where I can get some cocaine?"
Right.
Because it was in his auric field, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Next year, he had been clean, sober for the year.
Still there though, yeah.
They walk, and not one person asked him,
Right.
"Can I have some cocaine?" He asked me about that. And I go, because your energy changed. It's not in your auric field at all.
And it's amazing how psychic we all are. I mean, Seth also said in the books that I read many years ago that we are all communicating telepathically at a subconscious level anyway. And so we're not aware of it. And he said, you couldn't drive your car. When I say he, the energy of Seth is not a he, it's a consciousness, but let's just call it he. You couldn't drive your vehicles, your cars, without telepathic communication. And I remember reading that and thinking about that and thinking, oh my God, I know what everyone is doing on the road. Otherwise, if I didn't, there would be accidents all the time. And there are times where accidents do happen because that communication is cut off. So we're telepathically communicating all the time with people. And so there's this unconscious, subconscious, unconscious communication going on with all of us all the time. We're just not aware of it consciously until we are, right? You just start open to that unconscious communication between all of us, and then you're aware of it. But Michael Tamura, another fabulous healer I've had on the show, talks about protection in that when you see your auric field, you can bring it in, as you said, and expand it. But if you want to be someone that's expanded, then you have to clean up your own subconscious, be aware of your own subconscious programming to the point where your auric field becomes clear like glass. And so the most nefarious energies can pass through your energy field. But just like the sun comes through glass, it passes through you and doesn't get stuck. It's like energy attracts energy. So if energy comes into your field and you have a similar vibration in your field, then it's going to attract, right? And you're going to get this combination of energy in your field, and then you're going to feel it, and it's going to feel like, I don't feel well, I feel tired, I feel like I'm being attacked. But it has to stick to something. But if your field is clear, then energy just passes through you. And so it's like you could feel it and go, ooh, that didn't feel good, interesting. Oh, it's kind of just passing through you. We are these expanded beings. And we are passing through each other's fields all the time, even with you in the States and me in Australia.
Well,
our fields are meeting right now.
and if we just do that with each other, we're going to feel that.
Right.
And anyone who comes on, they're going to feel that. They'll actually feel that because there's no time or space with this.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
not, it's like, this is where we come from. This is who we are. This is where we're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. And so the next question was a great question. Does galactic consciousness have a plan for how to cure illness? For example, is there a plan to assimilate what could be the worst thing into something that accelerates ET contact and healing? That's an interesting question. Is there a plan to cure illness? You know what the ETs want, you could probably know this too, Barbara, is the ETs want us to evolve our consciousness. And once consciousness evolved, everything else follows. Everything. The suppression of technology follows. The hideous, pedophilia follows. Like, once we understand that everything we want, we are, and we stop looking for it outside of ourselves, we start to utilize that brilliance of who we are, that brilliance, intelligent, creative potential to create a world that serves all of us instead of seeking a world that serves me. So when people do nefarious things, they're doing it because they think in the having of what it is that they're doing, even though it's awful, it'll serve them in some way. So they're kind of totally effed up. But that's what they're thinking. So they're looking outside themselves to get something. But when we understand that we have all we need within us, because we are the creators of our reality, then our everything changes. Like politics changes, health changes, everything, food changes, it all changes. Energy changes, money systems change. Sorry, Diane?
We're in that process now of all that. Just all of our history, our history. We want our history back.
Yeah, everything changes. Yeah.
I think that would be what the galactic would want us to have, our freedom back. It's been taken from us for so long and so many generations that if anything, they're working with us to have our freedom back. And that's be fully expressed, fully creative, fully in our energy, like you're talking about, fully standing in our power, in our
power,
in the
power
body,
and
in our environment, and then not only personally but as a collective, and with our relationship with our Mother Earth here,
right?
Beautiful planet that we're on, and on this planet we have this body, and maybe we go to Mars or a different planet, then we're going to have a different body that works with that planet. But we still, as spirit, we're going to be in the human body having the Earth experience. And let's say I'm using Mars, we go to Mars, we're going to have a different body, but we still have this who we are inside that avatar. So
exactly,
it's pretty interesting, all of it. I love it. Yeah, the more free we can get here, I think the better.
It's a great question. What would be the worst thing to turn something that accelerates ET contact and healing? The thing that's going to accelerate ET contact is that evolutionary process in our consciousness, because fear has been the dominant frequency on this planet for millennia. So a being that is different to us, some beings are very similar to us, they're very humanoid looking, very human looking, and some are not, some are very insectoid looking, and some are just points of light. So beings that are so different to us come to this world, and they're different to us in so many ways, just not in physicality. And the fear that the humans have been marinating in, we just want to destroy them. The military, it's like, let's shoot them down. So is there any wonder that there hasn't been mass, disclosure of ET presence with the fear that currently controls this world? And the fear has been ramped up over the last year or so, hasn't it? So the fear of getting sick. So as the light hits our world, my guides gave it to me in a way that I could understand. So I'm somebody that likes, a clean house. I sort of clean stuff all the time. And they say, when you have a dirty house and you have a dim light, you don't see the dirt. But when you turn up the light, then you get to see exactly where the dirt is. And so Earth is the dirty house, and the light on planet Earth, the light on planet Earth has been really turned up. And so we're getting to see all the dirt on planet Earth at the moment. And the dirt is corruption, lies, control. And so what looks like it's being accelerated, it's not being accelerated, it's just being exposed. So the control that we're seeing with the controlled in the mainstream media or even on social media, and the corruption and everything we're seeing the exposure of what was already there. So when you see the dirt, then you can clean it. If you don't see it, then you can't clean it, right? So when you can see the dirty corner, then you go, oh, let me clean out that dirty corner. But if it's not looking dirty to you, it's like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Like going to the disco and partying all night, and then they turn the lights on and you've been dark, everyone looks beautiful, and the lights turn up like, ah! To see what everyone really looks like. Exactly. So that's what's happening. The light is being turned up on planet Earth and inside us, and we get to see what's really going on. So we get to see our subconscious programming really more now than before, because the light is turning it up, and what has been uncovered is coming to the surface. So all that fear inside us is coming up as well. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on planet Earth.
And take some time to look at it and not in denial or not walk away from it, or that's not going to be comfortable to look at that, because ultimately we're responsible. We're responsible for our energetic field. We're responsible for what I bring to this planet.
Ultimately, we're responsible. You know, in this third dimensional experience, we're given the experience of choice and decision. So we're given free will, whereas in more galactic civilizations, they have a more collective mind. And so there's not as much free will available to them, because their minds are like a hive mind. Their minds are connected. Right. They understand themselves as one. So free will doesn't operate in the same way it does here. So here in a third dimensional reality, we're given the opportunity to choose. We can choose heaven or we can choose hell. We can choose fear or we can choose love. You know, and that's the exponential bliss and beauty that we have, is this ability to choose. And from spirit perspective, from the mom's perspective, from, you know, God, if you want to call it God's perspective, from the unified field's perspective, they don't judge if you choose heaven or hell. They just give you the choice. So something was really interesting, was said in my Inner Sanctum group with Michael. He said that the light comes not to heal you, but to reveal what needs to be healed. And then you're given the choice.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Yeah, I love him. I haven't seen him in many, many years.
You got to get him on your show, honey. He's I love him.
I do.
And he's so much fun. He's just so much fun.
I will. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Yeah. I went, you know, because I know him from way back in the day. It's been forever.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They gave me a reading once, and I remember him telling me, he goes, you know, you have a lot of alien energy around you. And for me at the time, it was like, oh, you know, and so now it's like no big deal. But back then, when someone tells you that, you know, and you're pretty straight and haven't had it. Yeah. I
didn't know that. You hadn't told me that story before.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he was one of the teachers at Berkeley Psychic Institute.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to Berkeley.
There you go.
And was, you know, took their classes and everything. And he was one of the teachers.
Oh, you should totally get him back on the show. He's I've had him on like 6 times. I just love this man. He's such a master. You know, I could go into it. Now, Corey's got light like this burns what is already diseased and decays too. I suppose the main danger to the system is that so much metaphorical, physical pus could be expressed. Oh, I'm not understanding this at all. I think this is from Skeptic Shock. I'd have to read that again. So safe to say that when our vibration has dropped, we need protection. That's Rachel. safe to say that when our vibration has dropped, we need protection. Only if you feel you need protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
but
if,
see, awareness, again, awareness is everything,
yeah.
right? If you're aware that your energy's dropped, then if you have the power of that awareness, you have the power to change that. Then, okay,
Yeah.
boom, and it just, you can change in a flip of a snap.
Yeah. You know, when I was young and experiencing all this trauma with my field expanding and feeling everybody's energy, I went from guru to psychic. I even met Doreen Virtue, who's gone off the rails now, and said, like asking that question, how do I protect myself? How do I protect myself? And everyone was giving me these ideas. Doreen Virtue said, evoke Archangel Michael to protect you. And other people are saying, surround yourself in white light, surround yourself in golden light, giving me sacred geometry, giving me all these things about how to, and you know what? None of it worked. None of it worked. And it's a bit going back to what I said to you about my guides never glossed over anything to teach me. They wanted to teach me about responsibility and vibrational resonance. So I was not going to do any sort of exercise that was going to protect me outside of me cleaning up my thoughts. Like I needed to clean up my thoughts. So you're going to feel what other people feel when you're a vibrational match to that. So this question, going back to what Rachel says, so it's safe to say that when our vibration has dropped, we need protection. Yeah, you can protect yourself when you're feeling like, if you're feeling shitty and you're like, okay, I'm going to the supermarket now, or I'm going to go out into the public, I'm going to wear my protection so that I'm not going to attract negative stuff. It's just not going to work. Because you're still going to attract it. And Archangel Michael is not going to take that experience away from you if you are someone who, like you, Rachel, is a healer who's teaching others and needs to understand how it works. Yeah. Like you can't evoke some angel or spirit to take away your lesson. They're not going to do it.
They're not. And with your body, you might just turn down your lower chakras or turn them up a little or adjust them a little bit too, just because you can when you go out,
You can, but your thoughts are creating your reality. So I would clean up your thoughts before you go out. Like if you're feeling down or low, then punch holes in that argument, because it's just an argument. It's just a belief system. It's just a belief system.
And for me, with that belief, to change that belief, music plays a part in that for me. It's amazing. We're just, I'll play a song or a music that I like and it just shifts it.
It does, absolutely. There are many, many things that can shift your vibration, many, many things, right? But they don't, it's like putting a Band-Aid or taking an aspirin. They shift the vibration in the moment, but it doesn't deal with the underlying problem. So dealing with the underlying problem is the way to shift it completely. So you can put ointment on a rash and have the rash go away, but then the rash comes back. So it hasn't healed the rash, it's just taken away the symptoms. It's a bit like protection or you know, shifting your energy around and, you know, doing what you said. You can do that. And for that moment, you can feel better, or music can make you feel better, but it doesn't deal with what is underlying, what's the belief that's evoking the negative feeling. Like, what are you believing about yourself? You have to eventually look at that and change it.
And spirit will give you a lesson and
absolutely umpteen opportunities to look at that. Keep throwing it in your face. It'll bring you people that'll press that button, and like you'll get pissed off and you'll say, they upset me. And it's like, no, you're upset because that button's still there. We've just brought you someone to like show you that thing again. Yeah.
Exactly.
Umpteen opportunities. Absolutely.
So
darling.
true. It's so very, very true.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know,
and you learn those lessons, then it frees you up. And I think that's part of when you do this work for a while, it is about, you have freedom. You have so much freedom then that you have to create and have that joy and that bliss part.
Yeah, freedom. There's nothing better than feeling free of your free of the subconscious programming that you believe controls you, because it doesn't control you. And from your soul's perspective, even from a galactic perspective, you said, yep, let me take that on. I can deal with that. I know how to transmute that. I had this beautiful woman on the show. Now, what was her name? I can't remember her name. And she's disappeared off Facebook, who wrote a book called From Fear to Love. And it was about her abduction stories. It was about her being abducted by Greys. And then she had it so many times. She had this consciousness of being on the ship so many times that at first she's in her human perspective and completely terrified. So she went from fear to then realizing that these beings that were abducting her were her family, and that she was one of them before she was a human. And that from that perspective, she did her choice to be human from the ET perspective. So rather than from spirit's perspective and saying, yep, I'm a spirit, I'm going to go and be a human, she was having a life as an ET and said, I'm going to incarnate in, because to the ETs there's no such thing as death and, you know, and time, and they have a completely different understanding to our linear human minds. And so she made that choice, and she said that she had this memory of choosing to be human, and it was like she was putting all these things on her plate: divorce, depression, disease. You know, she's loading the plate with the human experience, and her ET guide is saying to her, are you sure you can cope with all of that? And from her ET perspective, she's like, yeah, bring it on. I can cope with this stuff, even though I don't really understand it from my perspective as an extraterrestrial, a higher consciousness, because we don't have that available to us.
Right.
Yeah, I got this. And then when she comes into the human life and she's going through it and she has complete forgetfulness, she's like, no, I don't got this. But anyway, she did awaken and she did remember. And I don't know why she disappeared off Facebook. I think that her coming out like that in such a public way was another challenge that she put on her plate. She had a family, she was older, she was in her 60s, she had grandchildren, and being so public about her, you know, ET experiences and lineage, maybe that was the next challenge that she seemed to have taken it all down. Yeah. So, you know, Sherry Wilde had that same challenge.
Oh yeah.
Her daughter said, you go public with this, mum, and we disown you.
Right.
And she did, and they did. And anyway, they've come around now. But that was a big challenge for her too. Yeah.
And your children, do they go through this with you? You know, they're kind of.
You know, I only have one daughter, and I talk aliens all the time, and she tells me all the time to shut up. Like recently she moved in with a bunch of young people. She was away on a boat. It's a long story, got bitten by a shark. It went viral around the world. And, you know, it's a long story. She had a house burned down at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, bitten by a shark. She had a big year, Saturn return. Anyway, so she moved in with a group of young people, and she said, come to IKEA with me. So I'm in the car driving to IKEA with her to pick up some supplies, and I'm talking aliens, and she's going, shut up. And I kept talking. She's going, shut up. And I said to her, she must have told me to shut up 4 times. You're not going to shut me up. She said, why? I'm not interested in it. She's, why do you talk about it all the time? I said, because it will be in your lifetime. It'll be part of your reality. You need to get with the program. And she goes, oh, but I'm really not interested in it. She's interested about talking about emotions and what he said and she said, all that sort of stuff. Like, she's interested in mental wellness, but she's not interested in hearing about ET. So anyway, she moves in with this group of young people. She comes over to my place a couple of weeks later. She's at my kitchen bench and she's smiling and laughing. I said, what are you smiling and laughing at? She said, well, you know how I was, you know, on at you for talking about ETs? And I said, yeah. She said, well, I told my new flatmate that I have this crazy mother that doesn't shut up about ETs. And he said, oh, cool. What is she, Palladian? I'm Arcturian.
Right. Exactly. And then you become the cool mom, right?
And he is this beautiful young man who works as a counselor in a hospital system. So he's got a really mainstream job and he's totally galactic, you know. Yeah. So I know you're looking at the clock. Are we about to finish?
Yes, we are. Oh my gosh. I just thank you for coming on and sharing your stories and your love and your wisdom and all of your life experience that you brought here today to share with everyone. And I just continue your work, and we're all blessed to have you here and doing your work. It takes courage. So I applaud your courage for being, you know, out of the mainstream And
I
and
applaud you for your work that you do at what's that big conference that you're is in the desert? What's it?
in the desert.
Contact in the Desert, and all that you do for the galactic as a galactic ambassador to, you know, disclose, expose, and that transparency of our galactic connections. And
Yeah.
for anyone that hasn't seen my show with Barbara and heard your story, you know, I'm sure your story is on your YouTube chat. You know, go and check out Barbara's story because her NDE is amazing. It's just amazing. Your story is so amazing. You've got so much to share, so much wisdom, and the work that you're doing. You've got the little when we can gather live, you have that little cafe area, and you invite people to share their galactic stories or their abduction stories in a really safe environment, and you mother them and nurture them so it feels safe and they don't feel ridiculed. And
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
you're doing amazing work, darling. One amazing work, beautiful work. And so they're all virtual this year, the conferences.
Yeah, the conference is virtual, so you can come, anyone can come.
That's
And
cool.
and anyone can come and tell their story each of the 5 days. It'll be a long one. And
Cool.
we'll have a cafe every day that people can drop in and tell their story. So
That's
it's
very
pretty,
cool.
very, very cool. So
Yeah, I want to hear more about that and links. So maybe those links will be on your What Cosmic Oracle page or on your
Yep.
Barbara Jean Lindsey Facebook page. But yeah, I want to check that out. That'd be cool. And what's another conference that you're involved in too?
well, I'm gonna be at the Spiritual Psychic Sasquatch, and that's
Sasquatch one. Yeah.
and that one's really fun. And I'm gonna be talking about about having relationship with Squatch, with how to do that, how to have that, what happens when that happens, how do you deal with that, and
With
I'll be
Sasquatch?
working with the Sasquatch, yeah.
Yeah.
And then working with the children there as well. We're going to have story time, and so I'm
Nice.
gonna be, I want to work with the kids. I love working with the children and their stories.
Absolutely.
They get to tell their stories and feel safe and respected and honored to do that. So
That's exciting. I've had a conversation with a Sasquatch psychically. They're super intelligent beings.
you never told me that. We
I
have
was
10 minutes. Finish it up.
I was tuning into a guy that that lives out in the forest in the States, and he was having telepathic communication, but he wasn't really there yet. He was really wanting the physical thing, you know. He was getting physical evidence, like he was getting rock formations and things that they were doing, and he was hearing them and maybe a few glimpses of them. He was really trying to have that physical experience, not understanding that he was already tapped in telepathically. And I was just tuning into him, and I just got this message from them, and I started telling him this message that they were giving him through me.
Right.
And so just tuning into their consciousness and just like, wow, they're such intelligent beings. You know, when you're communicating physically, because they look like animals and they sound like animals, they go, ah, you know, and they're kind of scary. But when you telepathically communicate with them, it's a totally different story.
And the love is so amazing. And I get them through smell. I'll know them in through the smell is how they come through. Just the smell, and then I'll feel them, and it's like they're holding you, right? Like they're quite intelligent.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Oh, that's the end of our show. So thank you, Karen, for coming on. Love you, my dear friend.
I want to say Higher Self Expo online July. I'm involved in that. I'm facilitating July. Yeah. Check out the page. Stay tuned on Facebook and
go to KarenSwain.com. KarenSwain.com. Love you.
Big love. Bye.
And we'll do this here, recording.